So, thank you, Susanne, for inviting me to give this presentation, out of program completely, but I'm very happy to be here presenting after so many great shared and have been discussed, and I'm very happy to be here, feeling participant in this moment, in which basically we used to get technology and apply and use technology to change the ways that we think about the world that we live in. There is something about the world that we live in, and is the economy that is being used at this moment, the market economy, where we measure success with profit. We have a direct link between profit and success, and where the economy is built on growth and consumption. So if you don't grow or you don't consume, the economy stops. An economy that does not consider the amount of resources that we're using, and makes us all work into silos, where everybody tries to protect their own intellectual property and tries to keep things for themselves, and that generates a competitive environment. And for the ones that succeed, of course, the economy works. It works very well because it increases the standard of living. But that's not for everybody, and we all know that that's the case. So how do we use technology to transition from an economy like that to an economy that does not create inequality, that does not create environmental damage, does not exceed the planetary boundaries that we do live in one rock, and we don't have limited amount of resources. And basically, how do we use technology to transition to a system that has become holistic and consider Earth as a one single rock, and where we live on top of, and yet manages to higher standard of living for everybody living on it. So there was also before the quote from Buckminster Fuller that we can try to fight the system as that it exists, but if you try to fight it, you are just trying to fix one of the components. Well, it's a system, so you need to change the system as a whole. You cannot just fight and try to adjust bits and pieces and hope that things will change. The same system will just generate just the same problems all over again. And if you say you cannot fish that fish, is illegal, but if that fish is rare, that means you will get more money to get it, so you actually incentivize it. So what we need to do is to create a different system, a system that is can coexist, and then people have the choice, a choice to switch to that system. So if we have to rebuild a system like this, we will have to focus on the human needs. And also, we talked about this before. So I feel a lot of synergy with these projects and the talks of today. To focus on so this is the Maslow pyramid of needs, where we have at the basic the physiological needs, and all the way up to self-actualization. To provide a system that at least is able to provide for the basic, but what we suggest is to add one more layer to the human needs. That's the internet layer. Us to exchange information and provides an infrastructure to be connected as a civilization.
As quick there, it seems more important than food.
It is, because it is. You know why? It is more important than food, because internet you can get food.
Yeah, but that's true. A few months ago, we had a capital crisis for the literature. Such a Facebook saying, "Here's my Bitcoin address." He said, "Boom, you know, I got thousands of dollars for that within a few seconds." You know, this internet was my way to survive. I could not have survived actually without internet or Facebook.
It is a fundamental
fucking startup, right? These things happen. there are cash ups and cash downs, you know?
Yeah.
And remember our cash downs?
Really?
Thank you, well, that's, not comforting, but but anyways, yeah, so Maslow's hierarchy, I think actually, it resonates so much because actually internet, that's the base layer of humanity. It's the way we survive for hard times, is to be able to connect with people who can help us.
Yeah, you can communicate and let other people know what's happening, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's a communication tool.
It's a communication, and it's what binds us all together into a new network. So now we have a grid of, before it was a computer. Now we suggest to just consider it as a grid of people, where every person can basically think about it. What we did once the internet was created, we just had this kind of model of how things work. So I have a store, and then there is the internet, and then we moved the store into the internet. So nothing really changed, but we can actually do something different. Now, if you think that we are this person here in the middle, and we want to advertise, we want to sell our product, I need to tell to everybody, hey, here's what I do. This is my business. And all the people around, so this is like kind of an advertisement. Now, if you move the store on the internet, it's the same thing. We need to get somebody to get the people into our store online. And then, of course, we need to pay for advertising. We need to put it on Google. And that's why Google is one of the biggest companies. Can we do it in a different way? The idea is that we can actually ask the people what they want, or the people can ask what they want. At that point, and we can store that request, we can store it on the blockchain. So that for each need that we have, we can form one decentralized global cooperative that its own task is to fulfill the need. So if you have transportation, you will access the transportation network. If you want pizza, you will access the pizza network. If you want babysitter, you will access the babysitter network. But once you have actually asked something and you say, I need this service here, the closest provider, maybe your neighbor, is able to satisfy the need rather than having to ship a tomato from Morocco and get all the way down to the supermarket where you go get your tomato. Yes. Well, basically, you can decentralize the food production, you can decentralize the transportation network. It's one network per need. And each of these networks can actually have its own internal treasury, which basically every time that the transaction happens, whatever value is generated between the transaction, you can save a percentage of the transaction into the decentralized cooperative, and then use liquid democratic governance to decide what to do with this value that has been saved. It is a form of taxation. But the community agrees on how much that should be. So we all agree. And I know that it's difficult sometimes to get consensus, but of course we can get some very nice liquid democracy where only the highest rewarded person inside the cooperative. So it's not a politician; it's just the best pizza maker in the pizza cooperative, right? So everybody use liquid democracy to just travel the path of power, and then we can use that power to decide what to do with the money. And if, of course, a mistake is made, for instance, let's say like, well, I want that all the money gets in my account. People will not really like that, and the power structure will be will fall back, basically recovered between the time that is allowed to stay.
I'm horribly opposed, right?
Then we discuss it. Yeah, we can discuss about it. So how does it look now in this new paradigm? We are the person that wants to do something today. Maybe just lost his job to automation, but what you can do, you can open an app and see on its surroundings which kind of needs there are. So the app automatically lists these needs and gathers these needs, and it puts them together and see what is the most important need. So what we do is assign the highest value of the contribution to this global community as the number of needs there are in your local surroundings. But we also say it's not just local surroundings, it's local. We can decide just with a slider and say like, okay, I want to see what is the most important thing to do here, or what is the most important thing to do at the global level. And since
both more local and more local.
Yeah, global. Yes. So in this way, you can really decide, and you can decide every day what it is that you're going to do. And so you see, like, okay, can I deliver the first service because it's going to be the one that has the highest reward, or the second, or the third. And you go on like this, and you decide what it is that you feel that is the most important thing for you compared to the most important thing for the community around you. Match. You do provide that service, and that service, the person on the other hand gives you back reputation. So you keep doing this thing over and over, so you serve more people, more services, and you actually, what you obtain is meeting your neighbor. You really reconnect with the closest peers, because that's how you're going to get selected to do the service. It's actually because you're close. So if somebody wants a babysitter, he wants it from his neighbor, not from somebody that you don't know where it's from, or just showed up. Same thing with and if you are providing services to your neighbor, you would make sure that you don't try to screw it over. You live in the same environment, and you want really to achieve the best and give the best to your neighbor. And at the same time, your neighbor can always come to see your plantation and say, like, are you actually biological? So it's just a way to reconnect with each other. And as long as you keep delivering the good services, you're actually building an online identity. So when there is a new, you can also verify it, indeed, with multiple peers, with a proof of identity, or we can even get some government to just say, like, well, we do recognize that this ID corresponds to this passport, so you can make a match. So you get more and more trust into the identification. And whenever you try to access any service, the people will not look at the fact that you do not have votes or scores or reputation on that service specifically, but the fact that you have been performing quite well on the other services. So you can extend the network of trust to be able to serve different needs. So what we're trying to do is actually create a system that does not necessarily use money for transactions. We want to move away from that and recreate a new system that uses a different value system. And we suggest to use three different, in a way, tokens or accounting value. The first is time, reputation, and karma. Time is 1 hour. 1 hour of a person is worth 1 hour of a person everywhere in the world. You know, when you're born with a certain amount of hours, and you decide where to spend them. The second is the reputation that we just discussed. And the third is the karma. And the karma is exactly that value that we discussed before, in that if you see that graph, what you do by obtaining karma is like, what are you doing for the community? So if 1 hour of time is spent to do something that only one person needed, then you exchange that hour of time as in a timeline. But if you do exchange, but if you do something that is very valuable for the community, then you should be more rewarded. So now what we're doing is using the karma as the token. We're steering the direction of what is the most important thing to do and we give that more value. So we're marrying, in a way, the capitalistic personal gain to the socialistic communal well-being. So how to synthesize karma? How do we get the karma from? There are these 17 Sustainable Development Goals agreed by the UN. And we can say that we can create one quest for each of these needs. And people can organize themselves using an app to solve each of these needs. And whenever the community decides that a proposal is worth it, and it sounds like it's a promising proposal for satisfying one of these needs, of these global challenges, then automatically value is created automatically from the system. And you won't have to, the funding comes from. The funding comes from the agreement that this kind of quests are actually something that is worth it at the global level. So that would solve a little bit of the funding problem for the social impact. So what we want to do is actually use technology to provide a platform for people and machines in the future to find an agreement on how to collaborate to perform global and sustainable goals, to work on it together, and to basically come together as people and organization into a new economy, so that in the moment that we make the connection of all, we can reach actually different parts of the economy, and we can use this platform to actually come together and unite, create a global unification network. So this is, of course, some of the ideas for a new platform, and it could be, I don't know how this would fit within the missions from Bitnation, and but I do think that it would be a sort of a plugin that people can choose and can form their own basically nation with and will be able to combine. We'll give tools to actually combine the transportation nation with the pizza nation, so that we can have a pizza delivery nation. Yeah, well, thank you. If there are any questions.